Okay. Yeah, I have.
And then they have bait,
Yeah.
or they have food today.
Baruch Hashem. All right, so we'll say good morning. Let's begin. Today's daf is Mem Ches. We are picking up Emirat Hashem at the Mishnah on Mem Zayin Amud Beis. So our shir, the day of learning, is dedicated by Gavi and Shane Hakon in commemoration of the yahrzeit of Gavi's grandfather, Meir Axman, Zichor Livracha. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the neshama will have an aliyah and the family a nechama. And the shir is also dedicated today by Moshe and Devorah Werdesheim for their son Avi to successfully complete his medical boards. Avi should have hatzlacha b'chol ma'aseh yadav. And with that, let's begin. And a good chodesh, of course. So with that, let's begin. Says the Mishnah, Eizu b'chor lenachala. What is the example of a Bechor who is a Bechor ultimately again for inheritance purposes? Ula Kohen, and ultimately again and for a Kohen. So remember again in the previous Mishnah, we were discussing examples of a Bechor who is a Bechor for Nachala, but not necessarily ultimately again for Kohen and not Nachala. Now the Shaila is, what is the example of a Bechor who is a Bechor both for Nachala inheritance purposes as well as for Pidyon purposes? So Hamapeles, Shafir Mali Mayim, Mali Dam, Mali Gninin. If a woman miscarries a placenta that is filled with water, filled with blood, or ultimately again filled with different colors, so halacha l'maisa, that's not considered a birth, and the child who comes after that will be a bechor for all purposes. Kimin dogim v'chagavim shkatzim v'ramasim. So if a woman miscarries something that looks like a fish, grasshoppers, shakats, creepy crawly things, ramasim, mapelisim arboim, or if a woman miscarries on the 40th day or before the 40th day, ultimately again, haba achareim bechor lenachalo lekohen. These births are not considered to be significant, and the child that comes after these births is considered to be a bechor, both for inheritance as well as for pidyon haben purposes. Yotzei dofen v'haba acharav. Similarly, again, if a child is born cesarean section, and one who comes after it, so remember again, let's say there's a firstborn boy, but he's not born naturally, he's born cesarean section. He's born as a C-section. And then there's a brother who comes after him. So the halacha is, Shnehem Einan Bechar, Lo Lenachal V'lo the Kohen. Neither of them are considered to be a Bechar, whether for Nachala inheritance purposes or for Pidyon purposes. Rabbi Shimon says, Harishon Nachala Vashini L'cham. Shimon says the first child, the C-section baby, is the Bechar ultimately for inheritance purposes, and the second one is the Bechar for Pidyon Haben purposes. Because mostly the first one will be considered to be Reishis Ono, the first of his seed, even though it's born cesarean section. And the second one will be a Petarechem, because Halacha L'maisa, that is the firstborn, natural firstborn child. So the Gemara speaks out this case. Rishon Lenachalolo. So we'll say ultimately again, we're focusing now on the last case in the Mishnah. Excuse me. Right, last case in the Mishnah, where the first son is born cesarean section, and the second son is born naturally. So the Tanakama said neither of them are bechar. Rishon Lenachalolo. So the first one will not be a bechar for inheritance purposes. Why? V'yoldu lo ba'inon. Because the both say the Torah uses lashon of v'yoldu, and Rashi, the Gemara Dash is derech leida. In order for a child to be a bechar, has to be born in a natural way. L'chamish slaim namilo. Similarly, again, it will also not be a bechar for pidyon. Why? Petarechem ba'inon. Ultimately, again, because it has to be the first of the opening of the womb, and this child was born C-section. Sheni lenachalalo. The second child will not be a bechar lenachala for inheritance purposes. Why? Reishis ono ba'inon. Because the bechar for nachala has to be the first of the seed of the father, and this child is not the firstborn of the father. I'm sorry. He won't be a bechar ultimately for pidyon purposes. Why? Because ultimately, again, he holds that being a bechar, the Tanakama holds that a bechar ledavar echad. But says, remember again, what that means is that, look at Rashi, bechar ledavar echad, kigon zeshu, bechar lerachamim, ve'ena bechar levlada. So we'll say, generally, we say that a bechar has to be a two-pronged bechar. Number one, Number one, the opening of the womb. Number two, the firstborn of the child, of the children. In this case over here, although the second child who is born is a Bechor for the Rechem, he's the opening of the womb, he's not the first of the children born. And therefore the Tanakama holds Bechor l'davar echad, to be a Bechor in one way, is not, or I should say, to only satisfy one of the criteria of the Bechor, ultimately again does not give you Bechor status. Rabbi Shimon on the other hand says, Harisha l'nachala. Rabbi Shimon says the first Bechor who was born is in fact the Bechor for inheritance purposes. Why? And the second one who was born is the Bechor for Pidyon, because Rabbi Shimon l'tamei damar teileit l'rabos yotzei dofen. Because ultimately again, Rabbi Shimon holds that when it comes to Nachala, the Torah used lashon of teileit. Teileit comes to include any type of birth, even a C-section. Therefore, the first child who was born, halach l'maisa, will be a Bechor for Nachala purposes. Vashini l'chamish shlam, and the second son who is born will be subject to Pidyon Haben. Why? Because he will hold that a Bechor, even who satisfies one of the criteria, is called the Bechor. And the second son satisfies one of the criteria, namely that he's the Peta Rechem, even though he's not the first of the children who was born. And therefore, Halacha L'maisa will be subject to Pidyon. So we'll say, Halacha L'maisa, we paskin like the Tanakama. And therefore, in this case over here, where the firstborn son is a C-section and the secondborn is a natural birth, halacha l'maisa, neither of them are a bechor, neither for pidyon nor for nachala. We do not paskin like Rabbi Shimon. Good. Top of memches. Mishalo bichra ishto. So we'll say now next case, someone who's married and his wife had never gone ahead and given birth before. Well, what happens? V'yolda shnei zecharim. Now, Mazel Tov, she gives birth to twin boys, two boys. So we'll say so. Now, the issue over here is we don't know which one of them is a Bechor, but the good news in this case is what? One of them is a Bechor. So there's a simple resolution. No sin, hey slam the Kohen. So we just go ahead and we give 5 slam to the Kohen. Okay, so what's interesting about this case, by the way, is apparently you could redeem your firstborn son even if you're not exactly sure who is the firstborn. So Allah said, because I know one of them is the firstborn, therefore I give 5 slam to the Kohen and Shalom Yisrael. Meis echad mehen besoch shloshim yom. So we'll say, what happens if one of the children dies, one of the sons dies within 30 days? So ha'av pater. In this case, the father will ultimately again be pater for Pidyon Haben. Why? Because we'll say this will be a motzi mechaver alav haraya. Right? The father could claim it's the son who was born first who passed away. The Kohen will say, no, it's the second son. And the father will say, okay, prove it. And the burden of proof is upon the Kohen to show that the surviving son is the firstborn son, because the Kohen is not going to be able to prove that. Therefore, the father is pater. So the Gemara goes like, what happens if the father dies? If the father dies, but the sons are still both alive. So Rabbi Meir says, Im nasnu ad shelo chelku. So listen to this. We'll say here's the case. So again, in this case over here, the father dies and the sons are still alive. The father died. Obviously, we're going to discuss when the father died, but the point is he died and the pidyon was not yet done. So Rameir says, so what do we do? It depends. Im nasnu ad shelo chalku nasnu. So ultimately, again, I will say, if the father, or what it sounds like over here, although we'll define this in the Mishnah, the Gemara, if the father had already paid, right, or if the 5 sla'im were already paid before the division of the estate, then ultimately, again, what is given is given. Ve'im lav, but if not, peturin. Ultimately, again, they will be pater. Again, we'll see what this means in the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda says, nischayvu nechasim. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, the obligation upon pidyon devolves upon the estate. And once the estate is obligated, halacha l'maisa, the children must pay. Zachar u'nekeva. We'll say, what happens if halacha l'maisa, in the case of the Mishnah, the father went ahead and had 2 children, but one of them was a boy, one of them was a girl, and we don't know which one was born first, in kan l'kohen klum. The Kohen has no claim. Why? Because the father could say it was the girl who came out first. The Kohen will say it's the boy who came out first. There's no way for the Kohen to prove his claim. And therefore, motzi mechavero alav harai. So also remember again, the contrast between the bookend cases is that in a case number 1 in the Mishnah, there were 2 boys who were born, which means there's definitely a Bechor. In case number 2, in the last case of the Mishnah, there's not a definitive Bechor. It's a boy and a girl, and it's possible that the girl was born first, and therefore, halacha l'maisa, the Kohen has nothing to claim. Good. Says the Gemara. So we'll say now we're focusing on the case of the Mishnah where the father died. So remember again, the Mishnah said if the father died, right, Meis Ha'av, and the sons are alive. So Meir says, if ultimately the pidyon was given before the estate was divided, then that which was given is given. And if not, ultimately, again, they will be pater. So we're trying to figure out, Demis Ha'av Amos, when did the father die? If you want to say that the father died after 30 days, in other words, the child had turned 30 days old, and then the father died, to which so we'll say, so what does that mean? That means that the Chiyuv Pidyon, right, the obligation ultimately again of redemption has already devolved upon the child. So Baha Amrab Meir Ki Cholku Pturin. So what does that mean? Why would Rabbi Meir say if they already divided the estate, their pater? How could that be? Vaha Ishtabdon Lahu Linechasi. We'll say if the children were already 30 days old, that means the obligation devolves upon the father. If the obligation had devolved upon the father, bepashtos, it devolves upon his assets. Even if he dies, there's an obligation of the estate to pay the money. What does it make a difference if the children divided the estate or not? So the Gemara says, Ella, to misbesoch lamid. Rather, it must be what? That the father died within 30 days. He died within 30 days of the birth of the child. So Maishna ki chalku. So we'll say, so let's analyze this. So Meir says like this: if the father died within 30 days, so we'll say, what's the halacha? It depends. If ultimately what? If they divided the estate, so Meir says they're pater. Right? If they didn't divide the estate, ultimately they're chayiv. To which the Gemara says, I don't understand. Maishna ki chalku. Why is there any distinction if they divided the estate or not? So the Gemara says, I'll tell you why. Because what's going to happen? The Kohen's going to come to son number 1 and say, pay me the money for your pidyon ben. And what is son number 1 going to say to him? I'm not the Bechor, go to my brother. He'll go to the second son, and the second son will say, will push him away, saying, I'm not the Bechor, go to my brother. So we'll say, so therefore, again, when they divide up the estate, each of the children could go ahead and push the coin to the other. To which the Gemara says, I don't understand. We'll say, why is that a function of the division of the estate? The two brothers could do that to the coin even if the estate is still undivided, right? He shows up by brother number 1, says, pay me the 5 slime. Brother number 1 says, I'm not the Bechor, go to my brother. He goes to brother number 2, pay me the 5 slime. Oh, brother number 2 says, I'm not the Bechor, go to my brother. What does it matter if they divided up the estate or didn't divide up the estate? Either way, both brothers could deflect the claim of the Kohen. On Rabbi Yirmiyah, Zosa Meres, we'll say Rabbi Yirmiyah says we see something very important from here. Zosa Meres, this teaches us, Shnei Yosef ben Shimon, Shahayu Bi'ir Achos. This teaches us something very important. That if you have 2 men by the name of Yosef ben Shimon who lived in the same city, V'lachchu Sada B'shotfus, and they bought a field in partnership, Balchov Gova Osamehem. A creditor can collect the field from them. What does this mean? Take a look at Rashi in just a moment. Shnei Yosef ben Shimon, Shahaya ish echad motzial echad mehem shtarchov, v'chol echad mehen haya madchehu leimor lo anihu kiyim chaveri, v'lakhu bein shnehem sada achos, torif balchov chatz yadam. I'm supposed to listen to this. In general, if you lend money to someone, you have to try to be as specific with their name as possible. Why? Let's say I lend money to Yosef ben Shimon. It happens to be in the city. There are 2 guys by the name of Yosef ben Shimon. So what happens? I show up to Yosef ben Shimon number 1. What does he tell me? No, not me. Right? I show up to Yosef ben Shimon number 2. He tells me, not me. So we'll say, so what's the halacha? So we'll say, here's the problem. I have no real mechanism of collection, with one exception. If they go ahead and they own a field jointly, I have the ability to seize that field. Why? Because I can say, listen, Mimanav Shach, right? One of you owes me money. Both of you own this field. So because both of you own this field, I'm seizing this field in satisfaction of my debt. So we'll say, so why is this important for us? Look, finish that Rashi. Hachanami toref hakohen heislam henachasim shenyachad va'amar lahu nami hachim ata habachar mechelkacha ani notel v'machicha habachar mechelko ani notel ubein shnechem tispasharu. So we'll say, so what happens? Just like if I lent money to Yosef and Shimon, and they argue, deflecting the claim upon one another, I could seize a field that belongs to both of them, seize the amount of my money, and say to them, hey guys, here's what I know. One of you owes me money. The two of you work it out as to who owes me the money, but I'm taking my money from this field. So to here, the Gemara suggests that when you have two boys who were born, and we're not sure who the firstborn is, if they did not yet divide up the estate, so therefore what they own a field jointly together, the Kohen could come to the estate, seize 5 sla'im worth of property, and tell the two boys what? You guys figure it out. Here's what I know. One of you owes me, quote unquote, 5 sla'im. I'm going to take 5 sla'im worth of property, and then you guys duke it out as to who is actually the Bechar. Therefore, we'll say this is Rabbi Meir's distinction. That's why Rabbi Meir says, if they did not yet divide up the estate, and therefore they own property jointly, the Kohen could come along, seize 5 sla'im worth of property, and then leave it to them to work it out. If they divided up the estate already, then what's the problem? Each of the two boys could deflect the claim of the Kohen onto the other. So the Gemara says as follows. So the Gemara says, because just like in the case of the two Yosef and Shimon, the Kohen takes a piece of jointly owned property and he says, if I lent you the money, then I'm collecting from your estate. And if I took from your friends, then ultimately I'm seizing his property. And therefore, also the same way that by the two Yosef ben Shimon, the creditor could go ahead and seize from jointly owned property, so too by Pidyon Ben, if the two sons still did not divide up the property, therefore own it jointly, the Kohen could come, seize 5 sla'im worth of property, and tell the boys, you guys figure it out. Masha'in Kain, once they divide up the estate, each of the sons could deflect the claim of the Kohen onto the other. Amar Rava, because Rava says as follows, Amar Rava, Michti, Nechasi debar inish inin arvoin bay. So Rava says a person's property is his guarantor. Right? Is his guarantor. Mi'i kamidi dilididei lo matzi tavalei ula arev matza tavalei. So we'll say, so Rava comes along and he says, I don't understand your logic. You're saying that ultimately, again, what happens over here is that when the two sons did not yet divide up, remember again, this is where the father died, 2 sons did not yet divide up estate property, Kohen could come to the jointly owned land and seize 5 sla'im. Rava says, I don't understand the logic there. At the end of the day, a person's property is his guarantor. That's how property works, right? Property is your guarantor. So the Gemara says, say, how does a guarantor work? You can't bypass the debtor and go to a guarantor. Right? First you have to go to the debtor. If you can't collect from the debtor, then ultimately you go to the guarantor. What's happening in this case, effectively, say? You're bypassing the sons, going back and going right to the guarantor, right to the land. So how could that be? Remember again, if you come to the sons, what are the sons going to tell the Kohen? What are they going to tell the Kohen? Not me, right? I'm not the Bechar. So could it be that there's a situation where you could bypass the debtors and ultimately go right to the creditor, to the land? V'atanan, we learned, Hamal v'es chavero al yidei arev. If a person lent his friend money through a guarantor, lo yifra min ha'arev, you cannot go ahead and proactively collect from the guarantor. The kaimalon, what does that mean? You can't collect from the guarantor. You can't first go after the arev. You have to first go after the debtor, and then only if the debtor can't pay, only then do we go after the guarantor. So I say, so therefore, again, in this case over here, how can you say we'll simply bypass the 2 boys and collect from the jointly owned land? That's going and collecting from the guarantor in it where you can't collect from the debtor. So we'll say, let's go back for just a moment to revisit the case. Was a situation where the father died after 30 days. After 30 days, which we'll say means that the obligation of pidyon had already devolved upon the father. So we'll say, if there's a lot of property, if there's a lot of property, the Kohen could go ahead and seize the property. Look at Rashi. Hachanami de Shakil. Rashi says, Afilu chalko, deha ishtabdu nechasim b'chay ha'av. V'afapi shemil va'alpei government ayarshim im yesh yerusha kishocho. So let's listen to this. So I may hold like this. If the father dies after 30 days, the obligation for pidyon devolves upon the estate. If the obligation for pidyon devolves upon the estate, then the Kohen could come and collect the 5 slime just like any other creditor, okay? But rather, what's the situation that we're dealing with over here? V'hachamayaskinon kigon deleka ela chamish slime. Well, this is very interesting. The case we are dealing with, where there is only 5 slime in the estate. That's the estate, 5 slime. Udukuli amos will say, now watch this. All the father left behind was an estate of 5 slime. Udukuli alma Islahud Ravasi. And everyone subscribes to the position of Ravasi. What did Ravasi say? Dem Ravasi. Ha'achid shechalk. This is actually quite fascinating. Ravasi said, when brothers divide up an estate, mechze yarshim umechze lekuchos. They are viewed for half of the Yerusha like inheritors, and half of the Yerusha like purchasers. Now, what does that mean? Take a look at the last Rashi on the daf. Mechze yarshim umechze lekuchos. Rashi says, Demisveikalei I bereira v'yarshin inhu, o I bereira ulekuchos ninhu, hilchach mechzi yarshin etzchos. We'll say, this is actually amazing. There is a fundamental machlokis when it comes to Yerusha, what the mechanism of Yerusha is. Father dies, leaves behind an estate. How do we view ultimately again the disbursement of Yerusha? Is it that ultimately again they're Yarshim, they're inheritors? And I will say, now if you say inheritors, that means that we employ the concept of Breira. Breira means retroactive clarification. That we assume that, because we also remember again, the way it works on a technical level is that when the father dies, each of the children owns some chelik in every piece of the property. It's not the pshat that this son owns this son owns this son owns this. They all own everything jointly. So when you divide up the estate, how do you view that division? Do you view them as Yarshim, as inheritors? When we say Yesh Breira, there's retroactive clarification, and therefore it turns out that whatever portion each son gets, that's the portion that the father meant for him to have. Or are they viewed as Lekuchos, as purchasers, that they essentially purchase their respective portions from one another? Ravasi says that the truth is we're unsure, and therefore we treat them like both. Regarding half of the Yerusha, they are considered to be like Yershim, and regarding half of the Yerusha, they are considered to be like Lekuchos. Now watch this, Rabbi say. So that's piece number 1. Everybody agrees that milva haksuva b'Torah amud beis, that if ultimately again you have a debt that is recorded in the Torah, what's an example of a debt that's recorded in the Torah, like Pidyon Ben, lav kiksuva b'shtar damya, is as if it's not as if it is recorded in a document. It is an unsecured debt. It's a verbal agreement. Udukuli alma islahu drapapa. And everyone subscribes to the concept of rapapa. The amar rapapa milva alpeh gova min hayarshin ve'ina gova min alakuchos. And Rapapa holds that aloch lamaisa, a debt that is not recorded in a document, but rather is only made verbally, you can go ahead and collect that debt from inheritors, but you cannot collect it from purchasers. V'hacha b'chamesh v'lo b'chatzi chamesh k'miflagi. And I will say furthermore, so I will say there's a multi-tiered piece over here. So furthermore again, there's another discussion, which is, if a Kohen, let's say a Kohen cannot collect the full 5 slime, so we'll say, do we say Pidyon Ben is an all or nothing proposition? Do we say that ultimately, again, if there's 5 slime, that's what you're entitled to? Less than 5 slime, you're not entitled to anything. Rabbi Meir Savar, so we'll say, so therefore, if you put this all together, here's what happens. So we'll say, so therefore, the case over here is where the father died after 30 days. After 30 days. Right? And therefore, again, the obligation of Pidyon devolves upon the estate. That's piece number 1. Piece number 2. There's only 5 sloim left in the estate. Piece number 3. We paskin like Ravasi, who says that when brothers divide up an estate, they are viewed half as Lekuchos, half as Yarshim. Number 3, or maybe it's number 4 already, right? Milvak Suba Torah, when you have a debt recorded in the Torah, that is like a verbal debt, not like a written debt. Furthermore, right, ultimately again, verbal debts can only be collected from Lekucho, from Yarshim, and not from Lekuchos. There, it turns out that what? Each brother inherits 2.5 slime. For those 2.5 slime, on 1.25 slime, each brother is considered to be like a yoresh, and each brother is considered to be like a lokeach. So both say, so therefore again, when the coin shows up, the greatest claim he has against each of the brothers is what? 1.25 slime. Because again, it is an unsecured debt that can only be collected ultimately from Yarshim and not from the Kuchos. So the greatest amount of collection possibility he has is 1.25 slime. And then Abba said the further fundamental shaila becomes, when a Kohen cannot collect the full 5 slime, is there a din of Binyan Ben or not? So Abba said, therefore again the Gemara says, Rabbi Meir Savar, Chamish v'lo Chatzi Chamish. Rabbi Meir says, no. Either you get the full 5 or you get nothing. Rabbi Yehuda Savar Chamish, Afilu Chatzi Chamish. And Rabbi Yehuda says, no. 5 is the ideal, but even if you can't get 5, you collect what you can get. Ihachi, if that's the case. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Nischayvu Nechasim. When Rabbi Yehuda says in the Mishnah that the estate became obligated, it's not the estate, but rather Nischayiv Gavrami Boile, it should say ultimately again that the father became obligated, the Gavra became obligated, Va'od, furthermore, Va'od Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ha'achen Shachalku, right, when brothers divide up an estate, Im Yesh Asara Zuz Lazeh Va'asara Zuz Lazeh Chayovin. Ultimately again, if there's 10 zuz for each of them, then they will be chayiv, in Pidyon Ben. Ve'im lav pturin, but if not, they'll be patur. Maya Sara Zuz Lazeh, Ve'asara Zuz Lazeh. So what does it mean? There's 10 for each. Ilema bein Yerusha bein Delekuchos. So ultimately, again, if you want to say that that means both for meaning both for their Yarshin identity and their Lekuchos identity, the Chamesh Shafilu Chatzi Chamesh, and we allow a coin to collect up to 5, but even less than 5. Ihachi my Irya Asara. Then why do you have to make it as a case of where he's inheriting 10 slime? Afilu Betzir Me Asara. Even less than 10 slime would be fine, because we'll say that we pass that the coin could collect whatever is collectible. Elapshita Asara Zuz Yerusha Lazeh, VaAsara Zuz Yerusha Lazeh. Rather, what are we saying? That ultimately, again, each brother inherits a total of 10 zuz. And Abba said, therefore, what on those 10 zuz, for 5 of the zuz, they are considered to be like what? Like a yoresh, and for 5 a lokeach. Alma, chamesh v'lo chatzi chamesh. Therefore, Abba said, what do you see? You see that halacha l'maisa, they're holding that when the Kohen collects the pidyon, he's only entitled to collect the full amount of the pidyon, not a partial part of the pidyon. Chamesh v'lo chamesh sviralei. Ella, rather says the Gemara, the kuli alma, chamish v'lo chatzi chamish. Everyone agrees with us that by Pidyon Ben, the din of Pidyon Ben is 5 slime. That's the din. That's the din. 5 slime. Chamish v'lo chatzi chamish. V'hacha, and both say, so what's the discussion over here? B'dirav asi v'rav papa kameflagi. So we'll say, interestingly enough, the conclusion the Gemara is coming to over here is that there's no chamish v'chatzi chamish. Pidyon Ben is a 5 slaim obligation. If for some reason the child, or for that matter the father, doesn't have 5 slaim, there is no Pidyon Ben transaction. So what is at the root of the machlokes of Rabbi Osai? So the Gemara suggests it's the statement of Rav Asi and Rav Papa. So we'll say, remember again, so Rav Asi and Rav Papa, what do they both say? Rav Asi's statement is that when children inherit, they are viewed as Lekuchos, purchasers, on 50% of the inheritance, and inheritors on 50% of the inheritance. I will say, what's the nafkamina between being a purchaser and an inheritor? It's very simple. If the father died and he left unsecured debt, he borrowed money from people, but what? It was never recorded in a document. It was a milva al peh. Milva al peh, right? Verbal agreements can be collected from Yarshim, cannot be collected from Lekuchos. So both say that's the machlokes. So the machlokes is Rav Asi's statement and Rav Papa that ultimately, and that's Rav Papa. Rav Papa's that for a milva al peh, for a unsecured loan or unsecured debt, you could collect from Yarshim and not from Lekuchos. So we'll say good. V'iked demasni la seifa. Others take this entire discussion and put it on the safe at the end of the Mishnah. Nischayvu anachasim, that ultimately, again, nischayvu anachasim, the misa'av ema. So we'll say when the Mishnah says that the estate has become obligated in Pidyon because the father died, when did the father die? Emas. Ilema de mislachar shloshim. If you want to say the father died after 30 days, Michlad Rabbi Meir Savar Ki Chalku Pturin. That makes it sound like Rabbi Meir holds that what? When divided up the estate, they're part of from Bejon Ben. But how could that be? Ha ishtabdi luhu nechasi. Ultimately, what? The estate becomes encumbered, it becomes obligated to the Kohen. Ella besoch shloshim. But rather, again, it must be that the father died within 30 days. If that's the case, ki cholku amai mechayiv. First wide line, mem chesam days. When they divide up the estate, right? Why should they be chayiv? Rabbi, so the Gemara, ki cholku amai mechayiv Rabbi Huda. Leza legabe haylitche, vegabe haylitche. After all, the coin comes to each of the brothers, and one brother says, I'm not the Bechar, go to my brother. Second brother says, I'm not a Bechar, go to my brother. I'm Rabbi Yirmiyah. Zosomeres Shnei Yosef ben Shimon Shahayu Be'ir Achos V'lakach Echad Mehem Sada Mechavero Bal Chov Kova Mimenu. So what do you see from here? You see from here that when you lent money to Yosef ben Shimon, and there are two of them in a city, right? So we'll say the problem is you can't really collect from either of them because both will say, not me. But if they happen to own a field jointly, what you can do is what? Seize that jointly owned property and says, hey guys, one of you owes me money, you two go and work it out. So the Gemara says, masikna mansad didach kasha kilna v'bechavercha masikna mishtabda li mikame didach. Because he could say, the creditor could say, if Reuven and Shimon, right, if you owe me money, I'm taking yours, and if your friend owes me money, I'm taking from his. Amarava michti. But again, Rava said, like we said before, I will say, but 1 second, the person's property is his creditor, is his guarantor, and you can only go to a guarantor after you go to the creditor. Then the discussion continues exactly as it was before. So we'll say this second version has the same exact conversation as before. It's just halacha l'maisa. Halacha l'maisa has it on the seifa instead of the reisha. So we'll say, so ultimately again so the Gemara records this machlokes. Right? Ultimately again, what we do first of all, so a number of you solve the stick ideas. Number one, I'm in Yerusha. How do we view Yarshim? Like Lekuchos or like Yarshim? So Rav Asi has the interesting idea that halacha l'maisa they're considered to be like both. Rav Papa teaching us that a milva al peh, verbal agreements or verbal obligations could only be collected from Yarshim and ultimately again not collected from the Kuchos. And the conclusion that the Gemara seems to reach is that the din of Pidyon Haben is only on the complete 5 sloim, which means that if the Bechor, or for that matter the father, has less than 5 sloim, the Kohen doesn't say, fine, I'll take what you have, and we'll call it even. No, Pidyon Haben is 5 sloim. If you don't have it, then ultimately again there's no Pidyon until you ultimately amass that amount. So I'll just say something interesting. Shulchan Aruch Paskins over here. Mei sa'av kodem shepadan. So let's say again the father dies before redeeming his son. So the father dies before Pidyon Haben. So we'll say before. So listen to this. Bein meis toch lamed, bein meis la'achar lamed. Whether he died before the child turned 30 days or after the child 30 days, va'banim kayamin, and ultimately again the sons are still alive. Nostin bein shnehem heisloim. We make both children contribute together 5 sloim. Va'afilu chelkon kvar nechasim. So says that's halacha l'maisa. Shulchan Aruch Paskins that in this kind of case where father died before redeeming the sons, right? And again, this is all the suffix. You don't know who is the firstborn son. We obligate the sons together to give 5 slaim to the Kohen. Whether they did divide the estate, didn't divide the estate is inconsequential. They give the 5 slaim together to the Kohen and affect Pidyon Haben that way. Beautiful. Says the Mishnah. Shtei nashim shelo bichrus. So we'll say 2 women who never had children before. V'yoldu shnei scharim, and they each give birth to a firstborn boy. So we'll say Yud Slam LeKohen. Ultimately, again, they go ahead and they pay 10 slaim to the Kohen. So we'll say there's absolutely no chiddush in this case. This is obvious. 2 women give birth. They both give birth to a firstborn boy. They're both obligated to do Pidyon Haben. We'll see. What the Mishnah is just going through a list of cases, but because we'll get to the more chiddush cases, but there's no chiddush in this case. Next, Meis echad mehen besoch shloshim yom. So we'll say ultimately again. So in this case over here, what happened is the fathers prepaid the pidyon. It's a prepaid pidyon option. Right? So you go ahead and there's no discount, but you prepay the pidyon. Right? So they gave this. So let's say the fathers gave the Kohen the pidyon money before the child turned 30 days. And then what happens? So Nebuch, one of the children died. Meis echa mehem b'so shloshim yom. Im lekoin echa nasan. So obviously, this case once again assumes that halacha l'maisa, the children are getting mixed up. It's like Rashi, for example, points out over here, these two men who gave birth, let's say they gave birth in hiding. They gave birth in hiding, so the babies get mixed up. So in a regular case, this is going to sound strange, but it doesn't really matter that they got mixed up. Meaning for Pidyon Haben purpose, it doesn't matter that they got mixed up. Why? Why? Because they're both Bechoros. So it doesn't matter. Where it doesn't matter. So they both got mixed up. The two fathers both prepaid the Kohanim. Now what happens? One of the children died before 30 days. Which means that technically speaking, right, one of the fathers is entitled to get his money back. So Meis Echamem B'so Shloshim Yom, Im Koin Echad Nasan, if both fathers had both given the pidyon to what? To the same Kohen, then Yachzir Lo Chamesh Slaim. Then Einachinami, the Kohen would have to return 5 slum, right? Because the Moshe says, since it's the same Kohen who got both pidyons, one thing is clear, which is what? He's not entitled to one of the pidyons. We don't know which child. Okay, so we just return back 5 slum. The Moshe, now remember, who does he return it to? To both of the fathers, and they work it out, right? So one pidyon to both of the fathers, and they work it out. So the Gemara says, because remember again, we don't know. I'm sorry. One father, I'm sorry. 2 mothers, 1 father, I'm sorry. Correct, 2 mothers, 1 father. So we're going to see, it actually doesn't make a difference over here, because remember, this is a case of 2 Bechoros. So the idea over here, like, just to be clear, right, it's Shtei Nashim Shelo Bichru, it's 1 father, 2 mothers. Rabbi say ultimately, again, the idea over here is when the son died, and 1 Kohen, there is 1 pidyon which has to be refunded. The Shnei Kohanim, and ultimately, again, if it's 2 Kohanim, then but if the father gave to 2 Kohanim, so we'll say, so 2 pidyons were given to two Kohanim, so we'll say once again, this is a reverse case like we saw before. In this case, both of the Kohanim could say what? I got the redemption for the living child. Other Kohanim, I got the redemption for the living child. And there's, of course, no way to prove who is who, and therefore you cannot extract the money from either of the Kohanim. Zachar unikeva. We'll say, let's say the 2 women gave birth, 1 to a Zachar, 1 to a Nekeva. Again, remember, we don't know who gave birth to who. O Shnei Zecharim unikeva. Or ultimately, again, there were 2 Zecharim and a Nekeva. So we'll say, in this case over here, of Shnei Zechar and Nekeva. So remember again, Zechar and Nekeva. So ultimately, again, we know that one is a Bechar. Obviously, one of the mothers is a Petarechem. Ultimately, again, the other is not. Or Shnei Zecharim and Nekeva. And I will say now again, in the case of Shnei Zecharim as well, Halacha L'Maisa, the issue you have over here is what? Here are the scenarios. Either I have 2 Bechars, right? Or ultimately, again, 1 Bechar and 1 firstborn Nekeva, and the second child that was born to one of the mothers is a Zachar. So we'll say, so what happens in this case? So no sin Chamesh Slaim L'Kohen. Ultimately, again, so in this case, we'll say there would only be an obligation to give one set of pidyon. Because most remember, again, in this case, there is only 1 definitive Bechar. Right? Remember, again, Mashenkin in the first case, where you have 2 women both giving birth to 2 boys, there's 2 definitive Bechorim. The only suffix comes up at who died. In this case over here, there is only 1 definitive Bechar. Therefore, again, there will only be an obligation to give 5 slum to the Kohen. Shtei Nekevas v'Zachar. But I will say, if ultimately, again, the women gave birth to 2 girls and a boy, right between them. So we'll say, remember again, in that case of 2 girls and a boy, then what? It's possible that halacha l'maisa, there's no bechar, right? Oh, shnei zechar mushtei nekevos, or 2 boys and 2 girls, which once again, possibility that there's no bechar. So the Gemara says, oh, shnei zechar mushtei nekevos, ein kam lekohen klum. The kohen has no claim for anything because it's possible that there's no bechar at all. Achas bichra v'achas shalo bichra. So we'll say, if let's say again, 2 cases, 2 women. One had given birth previously, and one had not given birth previously. The Yaldu Shnei Zecharim, and between them they gave birth to 2 boys. So no sin Chamesh Slam L'Kohen. Ultimately, again, there is an obligation of pidyon. Why Abosa? Because one of them is a Bechar. Meis Echa Mehem B'Soch Shloshim. If ultimately, again, one of the children died within 30 days, and we're not sure, was this the son of the woman who had given birth for the first time, or the son of the woman who had previously given birth? Ha'av Pater. ultimately again the father will be pater from going ahead and paying pidyon. So the Gemara says, ha'av pater. I'm sorry. Ha'av pater. Meisa'av abanim kayamim. What happens if the father died but the children are still alive? Rabbi Meir says, Im nasnu achlo chilku nasnu. If ultimately again they paid before dividing the estate, then we allow the money to remain with the Kohen. V'im lav pturin. But ultimately again, if they divided up the estate already, then they will be pater. Rabbi Huda says about this is similar to the previous Mishnah. Rabbi Huda says nischayvu nechassim, that the estate becomes obligated. Zacha unekeva ein lakoin klum. But ultimately, again, if they gave birth to a zacha and a keva, I will say the same case of where one woman had given birth before, one woman had never given birth, and between them they have a zacha and a keva. In that case, ein lakoin klum, because it's possible that what? That there's no bechar at all. Shtei nashim shall shnei anashim shall bechoros. We'll say two women, and two husbands, right? Shall shnei anashim shall Shalom Bechoros. So we'll say, two women who had never given birth, married to two different men, V'yoldu beis zecharim, and between them they gave birth to two boys. Zen nosin l'koin chamish slime, right? Ultimately, I'm sorry. Zen nosin chamish slime l'koin. V'zen nosin chamish slime l'koin. I will say ultimately again, both are obligated to do pidyon haben. Two bechorim, meis echamem b'soch shloshim yom. But I will say if one of the sons died within 30 days, but what? We don't know which son. So we'll say, if they both gave to the same Kohen, the Kohen will be obligated to refund to both husbands, or 1/5 slime, it'll give it to the husband, say, you guys work it out. But if each father paid to a different Kohen 5 slime, then ultimately again, then there is no possibility to reclaim any of the money. Zacha unekeva, but if the two women gave birth to a zacha and a keva, ha'avos pturin, ultimately again the fathers, and remember the children got mixed up in all of these cases, the fathers are not obligated to give any kind of pidyon haben. Why? Because each father could claim what? Mine is the girl. So ultimately, va'ben chayev liftos etzatzmo. But Rabbi say in this kind of case, when the son grows up or becomes of age, he is obligated to do pidyon haben for himself. Shtei nekevas v'zachar. Rabbi say if between, remember again, two women married to two men, if between them they have two girls and one boy, or shtei nekevas v'shnei zecharim, or two girls and two boys, in kan l'kohen klum. Then I will say there's no claim of the Kohen anything. Why? Because there's no bechar at all. Achas bichra v'achas shelo bichra. I will say, but if two women married to two men, one of them had given birth before, one of them had never given birth. Shal shnei anash, married to two men. V'yoldu shnei zecharim, and they gave birth to two boys. Zeh shelo bichra ishtar nosin chamish slime. The woman who had never given birth before, her husband gives 5 slum to the Kohen. Zachar nekeva, and the other one obviously is not obligated to do so because his wife had already given birth. Zachar nekeva, but if between the two women they had a boy and a girl, we don't know who had who had what. Ein kan l'kohen klum. In that case, the Kohen is entitled to nothing because it's possible that what? That there was not a bechar at all. Right, so we'll stop over here. We're going to Emir Hashem explain all of these cases in the Mishnah tomorrow.